Consider a person who always said yes to avoid conflict, only to find their life consumed by others' demands. When they finally learned to say no, they reclaimed their power. Don't wait for betrayal to teach you this lesson. The sixth truth: discipline isn't motivation. It's self-respect. To live in a world obsessed with motivation, waiting for the perfect mood, the right moment, the inspirational spark. Nietzsche would scoff at this. He knew that waiting for motivation is surrendering your power. Discipline isn't about hustle or punishment. It's about integrity, about acting in alignment with your values even when it's hard. It's the purest form of self-respect. You don't brush your teeth because you're inspired. You do it because it's who you are. You protect your boundaries not because it's easy, but because they matter. Discipline is rooted in meaning, not mood. When you tie your actions to fleeting feelings, you build a life on sand, shifting, unstable, unreliable. But when you act from your core, even on the hardest days, you become solid, dependable, unstoppable. Most people chase motivation and end up with broken goals, missed opportunities, and self-betrayals. They think they lack drive, but what they lack is respect for themselves. Nietzsche's insight is profound. Discipline is how you honor your own worth. Think of an athlete who trains through exhaustion, not because they feel like it, but because their goal is bigger than their mood. That's discipline. Most people only learn this after years of excuses, when they realize their dreams died not from lack of talent, but from lack of commitment. The seventh truth: people support you until you threaten their identity. Everyone loves the idea of you improving until your growth challenges their comfort, their status, their narrative. Nietzsche was unflinching. Most people don't consciously want you to fail, but they don't want you to outgrow the role they've assigned you. Why? Your success exposes their stagnation. Your boundaries reveal their excuses. Your transformation disrupts their equilibrium. When you start setting limits, chasing ambition, or speaking your truth, some will pull back, mock, or quietly resent you. This isn't because you're wrong, it's because you're no longer shrinking to fit their world. Think of a friend who cheers your small wins, but grows distant when you achieve something big, or a family member who supports your dreams until they threaten their idea of who you should be. Nietzsche saw this as a universal truth. Your growth forces others to confront themselves, and most people aren't ready for that. Most only learn this after losing relationships they thought were unbreakable, realizing too late that those bonds were built on a version of them that no longer exists. The eighth truth: your shadow will sabotage you if you ignore it. Everyone has a shadow, the hidden parts of you society told you to suppress. Your anger, shame, jealousy, selfishness. Nietzsche, like Jung, knew that ignoring your shadow doesn't make it disappear, it makes it stronger. It lurks in the background, seeping into your choices, your tone, your cravings. It whispers self-doubt when you're close to success. It lashes out when you're near peace. People think being good means being harmless, but Nietzsche saw that true strength comes from integrating your shadow, not hiding it. Imagine your shadow as a child locked away. The longer it's ignored, the louder it screams, sabotaging your life in subtle ways: procrastination, self-doubt, impulsive decisions. But when you face it, listen to it, understand it, it becomes an ally, a source of power. Most people only learn this after destroying something they love: a relationship, a dream, and realizing the enemy wasn't external. It was the parts of themselves they refused to face. Consider someone who suppressed their anger for years, only to explode in a moment that cost them dearly. When they finally embraced their shadow, they found clarity and strength. Don't wait for a crisis to meet yours. The ninth truth: you can't think clearly if you're always pleasing everyone. People pleasing is a seductive trap. It feels kind, safe, noble. But Nietzsche saw it for what it is: a mask. When you prioritize others' expectations over your own truth, you cloud your mind. You second-guess your words, overanalyze your decisions, dilute your instincts. People-pleasing isn't generosity, it's fear. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of being alone. The tragedy is that the more you please others, the less they see you. You train them to love your performance, not your truth. Nietzsche believed that clear thinking requires disappointing people not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Your authentic life will always clash with someone's vision of you. Most people only realize this when they look around and wonder why no one knows the real them. By then, they've spent years performing, and their truth feels like a stranger. Imagine someone who always said yes to avoid conflict, only to realize their life was shaped by others' demands. When they stopped pleasing, they found clarity. Don't wait for that moment. The 10th truth: you can still feel empty after doing everything right. Society sells a lie. Check the boxes: degree, job, partner, stability, and happiness will follow. Nietzsche saw through this. Doing everything right often leads to quiet despair, not joy. Why? Because you can follow every rule and still end up living someone else's life. You sacrifice years for external validation, titles, status, approval, only to find a haunting question: why don't I feel whole? Nietzsche warned that this emptiness comes from mistaking structure for substance, obedience for meaning. Think of someone who climbed the corporate ladder, bought the house, built the perfect life, yet felt hollow. They followed the script, but it wasn't theirs. The path out isn't more effort, it's asking, what's mine to do? Most people only learn this when their life is too rigid to change, and they either numb the ache or start over. Choose truth over the checklist now. The 11th truth: meaning is rare, and attention is a poor substitute. We're addicted to attention, likes, views, shares. It feels like meaning, but Nietzsche would call it performance. Attention is cheap, meaning is sacred. Chasing the former leaves you starving for the latter. Why do we do it? Because attention is instant, visible, validating. But when the spotlight fades, what's left? Nietzsche believed meaning comes from what you see when you're alone. Work that aligns with your essence, words that matter even in silence. Think of an influencer with thousands of followers, yet plagued by emptiness. They chased attention, not meaning. Most people only learn this after building a persona they can't escape, realizing too late they lost the self they barely knew. Seek meaning, not applause. The 12th truth: death doesn't steal. It clarifeasteth is seen as a thief, taking time, people, plans. But Nietzsche saw it as a mirror, clarifying what matters. He asked, if you had to live this life over and over for eternity, would you? Most can't say yes. Death strips away noise, excuses, delays. It asks, are you wasting time or spending it? Are you loving deeply or performing affection? Most only face these questions in crisis: loss, illness, or when time feels finite. By then, the unlived life haunts more than death itself. Imagine someone who lived for others' expectations, only to face mortality and realize they never lived for themselves. Nietzsche's challenge: let death's clarity guide you now before it's too late. The 13th truth: your freedom will cost you everything that was fake. Nietzsche's final truth is brutal, true freedom psychological, not just external, requires destroying every illusion that kept you safe. False friendships, coping mechanisms, titles, the need to be liked, they must go. Freedom isn't given, it's taken, and the price is everything inauthentic. It's terrifying to stand alone in your truth, to say no when it costs approval, to belong to yourself first. Most people flirt with freedom, but panic when the fake falls away. The familiar, even if false, feels safer than the unknown. Nietzsche believed you can't discover what's yours until you lose what isn't. Most learn this after years of resentment, feeling like strangers in their own lives. Imagine someone who let go of toxic relationships and found their voice. They paid the price, but gained freedom. Don't wait for regret to teach you. The final call. These 13 truths are not just warnings, they're a map. Nietzsche didn't share them to shame you, but to awaken you. Each truth is a fork in the road. Ignore them, and you drift into a life you didn't choose. Live them, and you begin to become who you were meant to be. Maybe you're not ready to change everything yet, that's okay. Awareness is the first step, but don't let these truths fade. Ask yourself, which one hit you hardest? Which are you still resisting? Comment below, share your thoughts, and let's build a space for those who want more than surface-level answers. Subscribe if you're ready to think deeper, feel stronger, and live differently. You're not behind, you're just starting with the truth. You click this video because a quiet voice inside you is stirring, a voice that knows you don't want to wake up one day and realize you've lived the wrong life. That's not some distant fear, it's a real possibility, creeping closer. With every silent compromise, every lie you tell yourself to fit in, every truth you bury just to feel safe, piece by piece. These small betrayals build a life you never chose, until one day you look in the mirror and can't recognize the person staring back. That's not fate, it's a pattern, a slow erosion of your essence. Friedrich Nietzsche saw it coming. Behind his fiery words, his rage, his unrelenting critique of society, there was one urgent message: you'll either learn now or you'll suffer later. If you're here, watching this, there's still time to choose differently. Let's not waste it. Nietzsche wasn't just a philosopher, he was a prophet of the self, a man who saw through the illusions that keep us tethered to lives we don't want. He didn't write to comfort, he wrote to awaken. His truths are not gentle, they're sharp, designed to cut through the fog of conformity and self-deception. Today, we'll walk through his 13 brutal truths most people only learn when it's too late, when the weight of regret is heavier than the courage to change. These truths will challenge you, unsettle you, maybe even anger you. Good, that's the point. Because if you're not rattled, you're not listening. Let's begin. The first truth: you were never taught how to think, only how to obey. From the moment you're born, the world hands you a script. Raise your hand. Sit still, memorize, repeat, obey. School, family, society, they don't ask what you think, they tell you what to think. You're rewarded for compliance, good grades for memorizing facts, praise for following rules, acceptance for blending in. But where in this system are you taught to question? Where are you encouraged to forge your own path? Nietzsche saw this as the death of the individual spirit. The crowd doesn't want thinkers, it wants followers. It wants you to agree, to nod, to fit neatly into its machine. Most people grow up mistaking obedience for intelligence, becoming experts at mimicking success, checking boxes, chasing titles, meeting expectations. But in doing so, they lose something irreplaceable: the ability to question, to doubt, to carve their own truth. Think about it. When was the last time you questioned something fundamental? Not just a rule or a habit, but the very foundation of what you've been told is right. Maybe it was a career path you followed because it was stable, or a belief you adopted because everyone else did. Nietzsche warned that this is how you lose yourself, not in one dramatic moment, but through 1,000 tiny surrenders. By the time most people realize they've never truly thought for themselves, they're trapped in a life they didn't choose, a job that drains them, a relationship that stifles them, a routine that feels like a cage. Real thinking is dangerous. It threatens systems, upsets hierarchies, and forces you to stand alone. But Nietzsche believed a life without it isn't a life at all, it's a performance in someone else's story. Consider this: every great innovator, every revolutionary mind, from Socrates to Galileo to Nietzsche himself, was a heretic in their time. They didn't obey, they questioned. They didn't conform, they created. What would your life look like if you dared to think for yourself, even just for a moment? What would you say no to? What would you chase? Most people never find out because they're too busy following the script. Don't let that be you. The second truth: most people want comfort more than truth. If you hold up a mirror to someone's life and show them the truth about their choices, their fears, their illusions, they won't thank you. They'll push you away. Why? Because comfort is addictive. It's warm, familiar, predictable, like a soft bed you never want to leave. The truth, on the other hand, is cold, jagged, inconvenient. It forces you to face things you'd rather ignore: your regrets, your weaknesses, the lies you've told yourself. Nietzsche saw this in every era. People claim to love truth, but what they really want is reassurance. They want easy answers, feel-good slogans, groupthink opinions that make them feel safe. They don't want to be awakened, they want to be coddled. Look around. How many people cling to comforting narratives? They follow trends, repeat popular opinions, scroll endlessly for distraction, anything to avoid the hard work of facing reality. Nietzsche believed most people can't handle the truth because it demands change, and change is terrifying. It's easier to stay ignorant, to chase distractions, to build a life on fantasy. But the truth doesn't care about your comfort. It doesn't soften itself for your feelings. It's raw, unyielding, and it will find you eventually, maybe in a moment of crisis, a loss, or a quiet night when you can't escape your own thoughts. By then, it's often too late to act. Imagine someone who's spent years in a job they hate, telling themselves it's fine because it pays the bills. The truth that they're wasting their life feels unbearable, so they drown it out with routine, Netflix, or empty affirmations. But the truth doesn't vanish, it waits. Nietzsche's challenge is clear. Will you face it now, or wait until it forces itself upon you? Most people choose the latter, and they pay for it with a life half-lived. The third truth: what hurts you is often what reveals you. Pain is the great taboo of our time. We're taught to avoid it at all costs, medicate it, numb it, distract ourselves from it. But Nietzsche saw pain as a mirror, the only one that shows you who you truly are. He wrote, "To live is to suffer, to survive is to find meaning in the suffering." Your fears reveal what you're attached to. Maybe it's approval, security, or an image of yourself. Your breakdowns reveal what you've neglected: your health, your boundaries, your truth. What you fight for reveals who you think you are. Yet most people run from pain, silencing it with distractions or denial, never realizing it's trying to teach them something. Nietzsche didn't see pain as the enemy. He saw it as a guide. When you face it, whether it's the sting of rejection, the weight of failure, or the ache of loss, you learn what you're made of. Pain strips away the superficial, leaving only what's real. Think of a time you were hurt deeply, maybe a betrayal, a dream that collapsed. What did it show you? Maybe it revealed a strength you didn't know you had, or a weakness you'd been ignoring. Nietzsche believed that by walking straight into pain, you transform it into something greater than what hurt you. But most people don't. They avoid, they medicate, they hide. And so, the pain waits, growing stronger until it forces a confrontation. Consider the story of an artist who spent years creating safe, predictable work to please others. When they finally faced the pain of rejection and created something raw and true, they found their voice. Pain was their teacher, not their enemy. Most people only learn this after years of avoidance, when the cost of running becomes greater than the pain itself. Don't wait that long. The fourth truth: the crowd is rarely right, but always loud. The crowd is seductive. It offers identity, purpose, a sense of belonging. When everyone around you believes the same thing, it feels like truth. But Nietzsche warned, the crowd is not wise, it's just loud. It doesn't think, it reacts. It doesn't question, it repeats. The more people it gathers, the more dangerous it becomes. He wrote, "Insanity in individuals is something rare, but in groups, parties, nations, and epochs, it is the rule." The crowd's voice drowns out your own, convincing you to trade your individuality for approval. Think about the trends that sweep through society: fads, ideologies, viral opinions. How often are they rooted in truth? More often, they're rooted in momentum, in the need to belong. Nietzsche saw this as a trap. When you build your life on the crowd's approval, you're building on sand. You might feel safe for a while, but when the crowd shifts, as it always does, you're left with nothing. Most people realize this too late, when they've sacrificed their uniqueness to fit in, only to find the crowd was just as lost as they were. Imagine someone who spent years chasing a career because everyone said it was prestigious, only to find themselves miserable. The crowd cheered them on, but the crowd wasn't living their life. To live authentically, you must disappoint the crowd. Nietzsche knew this takes courage most people don't find until their time is running out. The fifth truth: kindness without strength makes you a target. You were taught to be kind, polite, agreeable, generous. But Nietzsche saw a flaw in blind kindness. Without strength, it becomes weakness. Predators don't respect kindness, they exploit it. Takers don't stop because you're generous, they take more. The world doesn't reward softness, it rewards strategy. Nietzsche wrote, "The weak are always forced to lie." Why? Because without strength, you can't afford honesty. You hide your needs, suppress your boundaries, shrink your voice, all to keep the peace. But peace without power isn't peace, it's submission. Kindness with strength is transformative. It sets boundaries, demands respect, and changes lives. But kindness alone makes you a target. Think of someone who gives endlessly to others' time, energy, love, only to be used and discarded. Nietzsche's warning is clear. Strength isn't cruelty, it's clarity. Without it, your kindness becomes a liability. Most people learn this after years of betrayal, when they realize the people they helped most respected them least.